What is up, my brothers, my bgobsession.com brethren? Here we are for another episode of the Blind Pig Podcast, courtesy of bgobsession.com. Before we're rolling, as always, you can find us on all major audio platforms, youtube.com, all major socials, X, Twitter, Facebook, all that, and of course at the mothership, bgobsession.com. So hook us up with that like, that share, that follow. Come back every time. We will be here, I promise. So, fellas, I don't know if you guys are hockey fans, but Alex Ovechkin just scored his 900th goal, which is pretty cool. He just, hockey's on. I don't know what else you guys would want to talk about on a Wednesday, but
I would say the NFL draft next year, but I'm not ready for that. I know some people are already talking about it.
The draft thread is a buzzing right now on the board. I got into it a little bit, into the conversation a little bit, which I guess is what we can talk about. I don't know. There's not really a lot of positive to talk about in that Seattle game. Bob, you kind of alluded to it before the pod started. I don't think anybody really expected us to win.
I didn't expect us to be thoroughly dominated on every front. And I mean, I know Sam Darnold's come a long way and everything, and he's having probably like a Pro Bowl caliber season and everything. I don't want to diminish that, but it's still Sam Darnold. And I just expected us to put up a little bit more of a fight than what we did. And it's kind of been that way, right? And the only really good win we've had this year against a good team where we showed up and won, much less competed, really was the Chargers game. To me, it's like it's kind of been this way every time we played a good team. We just get shellacked and dominated, and it's rough,
Yeah, I expected a competitive loss. In all honesty, that's really what I expected, was a competitive loss. And by the end of the first quarter, I was 2 beers deep with the understanding that it wasn't going to be a competitive loss. By halftime, I was just kind of hanging out in my garage, drinking beer, watching the game, hoping that I saw something positive in the second half. And of course, we all know how that ended, so I didn't. I'm having a hard time explaining Sunday night. In all honesty, the Dallas game I could explain, and admittedly, I don't remember the last time we had a rash of injuries like we've seen here this year. I don't want to make that an excuse, but to some degree, it is a reason, right? To some degree, it's absolutely a reason.
Bob, I just out of curiosity. And I know Derek wants to chime in here, but just out of curiosity this afternoon, because I was thinking to myself, have the injuries really been as bad as what we think they've been? And so I went out and looked. We've had 17 players that have missed games due to injury, 8 offensive players, 9 defensive, including guys like Daniels, Austin Eckler, Terry, Noah Brown, Debo, Dietrich Wise, Dorrance Armstrong, Will Harris, Jean-Baptiste. That's just a handful of them. That's a third of the 53-man roster that's missed significant playing time. And then I went out and said, okay, if you look at how many players are out for the season, which we've got 5 guys gone for the year, McCaffrey, Lattimore, Eckler, Wise, and Armstrong. And then we've got another 6 on IR. That's 21% of our roster. That's done for the year.
Wait. When McCaffrey's done for the year? I missed that news.
He broke his collarbone on the opening kickoff.
Oh my gosh!
Yeah, that happened.
He didn't play a single offensive snap.
I knew he didn't play an offensive snap. I knew it was the opening kickoff, but I had not heard that it was his collarbone and he was done for the year.
Him and Lattimore both got put on IR on Tuesday.
Yeah, and Lattimore's getting all the headlines down here.
I guess that I think it puts to bed the whole idea that like the injuries, all NFL teams have injuries, or that's just an excuse. I mean, I don't care who the coaches were and who the GM. I know there's a lot of craziness right now with like get rid of Adam Peters. He's a failure. Fire Quinn, fire Quinn and put Witt in charge. I've heard all kinds of crazy shit.
Fire Witt and make Quinn call the defense. Yeah.
But I don't think there's a coach alive or a former great coach that would probably have done much better with that kind of, with just not having the guns out there on the field. I maybe I'm wrong about that, but that's just how I feel about it.
No.
The other one you didn't even touch on, sorry, Bob. The other one you didn't even touch on is that we didn't even have our starting right guard for the first 4 games of the season, Cosme. And then he wasn't 100% when he came back. He's probably just now getting up to game speed, and it's we're going into week 10. So the people that want to dismiss this injury bug, guess what? Injuries do happen to teams. Injuries happen to all NFL teams. I get it. Guess what else? They don't fire their coach every single season. And that's one of the things it's killing me right now with this fan base is you don't have to replace your coach or your defensive coordinator. Yeah, I mean, I guess we can have a conversation about Witt because the defense is just not performing. But let's be real here, because Quinn's got to be smart. Chances are Kingsbury's not our OC next year. Somebody's going to probably hire him. And with that, he's going to have to find a new offensive coordinator. And he's going to have to be paying attention to some other areas of the team. And continuity is a thing. I don't know if people want to admit that, but it is a thing. And it's a thing more than a lot of people realize. We want to be involved in the conversation with the Howie Rosemans and with the Lions and with the Ravens and the Buffalo Bills. Guess what they're not doing? They're not changing coaches. They're not changing coordinators. They're getting promoted, but they're not changing things.
Right.
They have a 53-man roster that has been built. They add 2 or 3 pieces every year that have any actual legitimate contribution, and those 2 or 3 pieces easily assimilate into the system. 50 guys are already rowing in that direction. One of the things that has plagued this team is that we are constantly changing. What did Heineke have 4 offensive coordinators in 4 seasons?
Yeah,
if I'm remembering correctly. Same thing with Howell, same thing with Haskins. Every quarter we cannot keep churning this butter. At some point, we need to realize we have Jaden Daniels, who hasn't been 100% this year, and we need to build out the entirety of the roster, and part of that is continuity. Part of that is grasping a defensive and an offensive system. Part of that is a lot more than just Jimmy. This isn't Madden. You can't just go sign an 80-rated player off the street and put them in the starting lineup and play with them and get better on offense. It just doesn't work that way.
No, and I'll tell you what else doesn't work that way. I keep seeing a lot of guys griping about the depth on this football team. Let me tell you what, there's not a football team in the league that can lose that loses a handful of starters and replaces them with guys that would start for other teams. That just doesn't fucking happen around here. There is a drop off from your starters to your backups on every single team in the league. It is just that simple. You can lose one off a starting 11 on offense and keep going. But I would point to 2 examples. Kansas City lost their first 2 games out of the chute this year. Why? Because their top 3 or 4 wide receivers were all on the bench, either with injuries or suspensions. And even Pat Mahomes can't make 5, 6, 7, and 8 on the depth chart look like 1, 2, 4. The second example is the Charger game. We beat a Charger game that we're missing their 2 starting offensive tackles. I'm sorry, 3 and 4 are not going to hold up against the pass rush the way 1 and 2 are. They just aren't. Not on any team in the league. And so the fans out there that are going, Adam Peters doesn't know what he's doing with depth, are expecting backups to suddenly perform like starters in a league that is, if we're really honest about it, fairly thin between, the veil is thin between the starters and the secondary all the way across this league. And the drop off is not insubstantial. So, maybe I'm a little frustrated with some specific things that I see happen on the field that I don't think should be happening. Like if I see Bobby Wagner matched up with a running back again in pass coverage, I'll probably puke. But the reality is, beyond little things like that, a lot of this is just the fact that there's a new guy playing next to you every week in this team. And that's tough to develop
And
any
that's,
type of chemistry with.
I think that's the part where I get a little frustrated, because it's not just about looking. I mean, I rattled off a bunch of names. It's not just about like those individual players not being available. It's, you don't know, like somebody said, oh, well, Jaden isn't throwing with anticipation. How the hell can he throw with anticipation? He's throwing to guys who he doesn't know, and he's not now, but he was throwing to guys that he doesn't play with, that he doesn't necessarily know if they're going to run the route correctly or even run the play correctly, because, well, hell, one of them was on the practice squad a week ago. And I mean, I get what they're saying, but it's like everything matters when now they're stacking the box because we can't complete a pass. And now when Jaden scrambles, instead of having a lane where he gets 7 or 8 or 9 yards, he's getting crushed because there's 12 guys around him. I mean, it's just, you can't just look at that one player. Every time you pull a guy out of that roster, it creates problems with,
Right.
I mean, it creates problems for the coaches, because you can't just plug and play guys, regardless of what their talents are. Now they're having to like scramble to figure out what kind of game plan do we come up with this set of players that have the chance of stopping Seattle. It's hard. It's a lot harder than you want to admit it is.
You know good and well that Cliff's got specific plays on his call sheet, probably more than one, that fit specific players. I'm thinking of Deebo Samuels right off the top of my head, right? So if Deebo is not playing or he gets hurt during a game, suddenly that column on the call sheet's gone. Just gone. Because there's nobody else on the team that fits that, that particular skill set. And it just, oh my gosh. It is so different than having a healthy football team.
The other part of this that we haven't even met, how about when we lost a game, probably because Laramie Tunsil went down. Let's be real. Yes, he has come back, but he's nicked up now. We had to move Brandon Coleman to another position, which means now he's playing out of practice position. Like, I'm at the point now where if Brandon Coleman is going to be your starting guard, if you have any anticipation, do not. I put Wiley out there at this point. Like, you know what I mean? Because now we're taking a second-year player that we drafted to be a starting tackle, who came in to play left tackle, ended up getting moved to right tackle, ended up getting moved to guard, and then now he's trying to fill in for an all-pro. Like, at some point, we've got to stop this game of just, again, this goes back to your depth point, of thinking that you can just take a guy and move him to another position and expecting him to produce. We have Darnell Savage, who we signed off the street playing meaningful football snaps. And not only that, he's made a couple plays. Let's be real. Now with the injury to Lattimore, I think the fans are going to see what they wanted. Amos is going to be number 1, and then Sanderstow's probably going to get bumped outside.
Yeah,
I would imagine. Again. But now Sanderstow's been practicing in the nickel for 6 months. So are they going to, again, say that he's washed up because he doesn't step back outside and play against one of the most explosive offenses in the NFL this coming weekend in Detroit? Like, where's the grace period here, right? Like,
I think the other thing that drives me a little insane with some of and again, here's the thing. We're just like every other fan. We're devastated. I mean, look, the title of our pod tonight is 2025 Futility is all too familiar territory for Washington fans. We get it. We're fans. We're lifelong fans. We're just as bummed as anyone else. But the other thing that kind of drives me a little crazy is there's this narrative where, well, last year it was all smoke and mirrors. Like, the coaches shouldn't get any credit for last year because it was all Jaden and the ball, all the balls bounced our way. We won games that we shouldn't have won. And so it's almost like, but this year when the pendulum is swung the other way, now all of a sudden it's all about the coach's ability and the front office sucks and we had a bad strategy. And it's like, to me, it can't be both of those. It's like,
right.
If you're going to say last year was due to mostly good luck, then maybe this year.
You have to admit this year's had a lot of bad luck.
I just think you need to, it's like 2 data sets. You don't just get to throw one data set out the window. in either situation. I mean, you can't. So I guess one thing I do want to talk about is there's a lot of ridiculous criticism, but what are some legitimate criticisms of this year? Like you brought up Joe Witt Jr., Derek. I do think
criticism.
he's probably done after this season. I do, because I think they're going to have to. And here's why I say that. I don't know if he has the potential to be a really great DC at some point, but he's not. He doesn't seem to have any answers right now. And I get it. I mean, I had listed off all the injuries, including defensive injuries, but he's only been a DC for 2 years. He's never shown that he can be a good DC at the NFL level. And it's also especially concerning to me that he's got Dan Quinn there to help him, who has shown to be an outstanding defensive coordinator, and we still can't seem to at least play consistent from game to game. So I do think people that say he needs to go, I don't know whether he needs to go. I think he will go at the end of the year because I think they're going to have to do something to stop the bleeding. Because last year the defense was almost as bad as it is this year. In fact, you could make the case that it's better this year than it was last year, which is a scary thing. But the difference was last year we were scoring points anytime we wanted.
Not only that, we were going forward and making it on fourth down and extending drives and keeping the defense on the sideline and putting up 30 points and being able to score in under 2 minutes at the end of the half.
That covered up a lot of bad defense. So I mean, that's just one. The people that are beating on on Joe Witt Jr., I kind of get that. I'm not quite there, but I do get that. What other criticisms have you guys heard that you think are legitimate?
Before I go there, I want to throw out one other thing. All right, so the defense wasn't great last year. I think a lot of people forget we had a fair number of times where this defense held people outside the end zone, inside the 5-yard line, forced field goals or forced outs on fourth down where teams were going for it because they needed the points to try and get ahead of us. The defense actually played really well situationally last year. Did we give up a shit ton of yards? Yes, we did. Did we not take the ball away nearly as much as we should have? No, we didn't. And so a lot of the same things we're seeing this year. But just like, my phrase, John, is the football gods giveth and the football gods taketh away, right? And that's kind of the tale of last year and this year. Last year, we got some things, even on the defensive side, that we're just not getting this year. Whether it was a great play at just the right moment or whether it's a penalty at just the wrong moment this year, right?
Or a drop. Let's be real. Malik Neighbors doesn't drop that ball, we probably lose to the Giants. And Devontae Smith doesn't drop that ball, we probably lose to the Eagles. We got the bounces.
Right. So I don't know. There's a lot to it. What am I seeing that I don't like or that I feel like?
Or that specifically that you think were front office errors over the last 2 seasons or things that led to 2025 that there's some legitimacy to versus just, everyone needs to be fired.
I don't question the Connerly pick in terms of longevity. I think it'll probably come great in a couple of years, but right now, not picking somebody that might have turned it. And I don't have any names off the top of my head, so this is me just, I guess, blowing smoke. But a pass rusher with that pick in the first round, that's what I thought we were going to do. If we're really square about it, I assumed we would go defense with that first pick in the draft, and we didn't. Now we say that Amos is playing as well as any first-round cornerback in this year's draft. So maybe we got a first-round guy in the second round. Connerly looks a little like a luxury pick at the moment when you consider that we had both Coleman and Wiley already on the roster, and you pick up Tunsil, and it looks like your tackle position is pretty well set, and then you blow your first-round pick on another tackle. If I'm judging harshly, yeah, that's probably it.
That's the problem with best player available, though. People that argue because in the short term, sometimes best player available, and I'm not saying he was, but I think that's why they picked him, is because that he was there and they didn't think he'd be there. But sometimes in the short term, fans struggle with that because it might be a while before the wisdom of that, it's if it happens, it might take a while for that to become evident.
You're right. And I had a second one off the top of my head that I was gonna throw out there, and now it seems kind of I guess at this point in time you can look at what's going on the field and go, hey, maybe we should have let Wagner go after 1 year. Maybe last year was that dream season for Bobby Wagner. Now, having said that, he's still leading the team in tackles. And if I have a problem with Wagner at the moment outside of his pass coverage, it's that
he's
it
still
almost
on the field, Bob.
Too hard. It's almost like he's trying too hard. He's overrun a couple of things that I feel like last year he would have set down in the right spot and stopped. And I don't know, but there you go. There's a couple, John. Derek, what do you got?
What would you criticize the front office or the coaches for, Derek, if I held a gun to your head?
I had one and I've just spaced on it.
While you're thinking about it, Derek, I want to talk about one that seems to be a hot topic that I feel like is a misread by the fans, and that's Lattimore. Lattimore was never healthy all last season. I never felt like Lattimore was a pickup necessarily for last season. I thought if he could contribute in the playoffs, that was great. But to me, that really looked like a play for plugging a hole this year, last year, so that we didn't have to spend crazy money in free agency or blow a first-round pick on a cornerback that gave us a couple of years of breathing space. And I felt that way all of last year. And then the offseason was for him to get healthy. Now, that doesn't look like a great call right now because Lattimore's wasn't playing well. And, of course, now he's on injured reserve for the rest of the year with an ACL. And at his age, that could be his career. But I that's not one I'm going to knock the front office for. I don't feel like was a bad move. I thought it was an acceptable risk then, and it still looks that way to me.
Yeah, I agree. And I think to your point is that the reward could like everything is risk or reward. Nobody's going to bat 1,000 in the NFL, right? Like there's going to be decisions that you make and say, look, even if this doesn't work out, but if it does work out, we've got X. Some of the things, I guess if I had to be a little critical on some of the things, I think we've set some of these players up to be a little susceptible for injury. Look, I love what Luke McCaffrey's been doing on the kick return, but with what we've had happen at wide receiver, you got to get his ass out of there, right? Like that guy's value now has become being your number 3 wide receiver over being a kick returner. And while I agree special teams is important and special teams is valuable, like I guess some of the situational awareness would be a little frustrating. I say that, and I will say that I'm not going to look at JD5. Look, Quinn said he should have pulled him. Okay, but I'm not going to kill him for it. I don't think he needs to lose his job for it. It was a bad injury. But damn, I had one I wanted to talk about now, and my brain just went complete mush. So it'll come to me like 4 minutes after the podcast is over, and I'm going to sit up and scream and text both of you guys telling you what my opinion was.
So, Derek, I'm one of the guys that I do think the Lattimore trade was a mistake based on what I've seen so far. Although it does also calls into question, like, why can't Joe Witt Jr. get productive defensive backfield performance? Well, we used two years in a row, 2 drafts in a row, we used our second-round pick for a defensive back. One of them, San Ristel, who's like taking I think he was a second rounder, he's kind of taking a step back this season for whatever reason. And then Trey Amos,
was he second or third? I mean, I may be semantics here, but I think it was third.
Well, Trey Amos is playing well for a rookie, but you would think with those 2 guys and then giving up draft capital for Lattimore that we would have a much improved defensive backfield, but we don't. And So anyway, but
No,
the point
you're
I was
right.
going to
Second
make,
round, 50th overall.
the point that I was going to make is, you know how fans, we say things, but we really don't mean them. And this is one of the things that we say all the time. No GM is perfect. They're all going to make mistakes, and they're all going to swing and miss. We say that shit all the time. Well, guess what? Maybe he missed. I mean,
And that's fair.
obviously we're trying. I mean, so what? He missed. If Lattimore never plays well for us, shit happens. I don't know what fans. I mean, I just don't understand that we say one thing and then we lose our collective ever-loving minds when what we just said happens. I mean, if it was a miss, he swung and he missed. It happens.
I said this on the board. There's a thread, bgobsession.com. Please come join us on the old time forums for you people that miss those kinds of things. Anyway, I said this in a thread. Where did we get Peters from? We got him from San Francisco, where he worked for John Lynch, who is arguably considered one of the top 4, 5, 6 GMs in the league right now. Right? I mean, he's not far off Howie Roseman, consideration in terms of being a GM. He burned 3 first-round draft picks to get Trey Lance. Talk about a swing and a miss.
Yeah.
That makes Lattimore look dirt cheap, kids. And I would argue that Lattimore's problem may be as much about scheme as anything else. Let's go back to Kansas City a week and a half ago. First half, we stymied Kansas City. Where was Lattimore playing? Press man coverage. He was on the line in a receiver's face at the snap. Where'd he play second half? Zone.
Well, that comes back to Witt, by the way.
Right. That's what I'm saying. Right. That's a scheme thing. Now, is that a Joe Witt thing? Was that a predetermined thing to start this, the game off? Witt, Quinn, and the other defensive coaches went, we're going to play press man to start the game, and then we'll back off into a zone later on. Were they trying to, did they get cutesy and try and anticipate Andy Reid's changes at halftime and do something different and got eaten alive? I don't know. But what I know is Lattimore played 2 very different games, first half and second half. And personally, I want him playing the game he wants to play, and he seems to want to play a physical pressed man game, and that's not what we've had him doing most of this season.
And yeah, you kind of want that athletic arrogance a little bit. Like, I'm going to come show you up. This is what I want. Back to the John Lynch San Francisco thing, they have gone all out in a lot of different places at left tackle. That Christian McCaffrey is on that team. You mentioned Trey Lance. They have paid Brock Purdy how much freaking money? Super Bowls they have in the last 10 years. The same number that we do. So let's calm down with our you know what I mean? Like, looking at some of the way that things work. Howie Roseman, who's supposed to be one of the best in the league, gave us a 3rd-round pick for Jahan Dotson. I'm just going to put that out there. So my point is, I guess if I want to be critical and I want to be frustrated, I think that maybe we can look back, hindsight 2020, and say that there could be a better support or a better safety net in the draft, because I'm not exactly a fan of only having 15 draft picks over 3 seasons. That's not really how you build a roster the right way, quote unquote. But if you look at the moves in a vacuum, they make sense. And if you look at the whole, and you don't want to, it kind of makes sense, because we gave up this much for Debo, but we got this much back for Brian Robinson. So, like, it's chess. It's not checkers. It's not one move. You know what I mean? You've got to work multiple moves at once. I guess schematically, my frustration, like, I would love to see. I want to know why Luvu took 8 weeks to get back to where he was before. Like, I'm curious if that's a scheme thing. I don't know if that's a mental thing. I don't know what that is, but Luvu needs to be hair on fire, blow your ass up, downhill. You know what? And there are going to be plays that he is 15 yards behind the play because he was running so fast he lost control of his body. But there's going to be other plays that he just is wreaking havoc. So that is where I'm looking at this and saying what gives. But I don't want to sit here and we all know the negativity of the season so far. It's not working out. I think there's a lot of factors. I don't think there's one thing you can point to. I think you can be critical of Witt. I think that's deserving. We talked about it. I think you can look at the injuries and say this is very difficult to overcome. I think you can look at the fact that last year our strength of schedule was much lower than this year. We're playing much higher quality players, much higher quality quarterbacks, much higher quality coaching staffs. I think you can look at the bounces. Last year, we beat the Bears on a Hail Mary. This year, they essentially got their Hail Mary, right? Like, there was some puck luck there. I don't think we're broken. I think fans need to take a step, in my personal opinion, and say, this is the volatility of the NFL. This is how teams like the Bear or the Packers can make us look like dog shit and then lose to the Panthers, if I'm not mistaken, this past weekend. There's a lot of things that happen, and it's not as simple as Joe Witt is the problem, or Adam Peters should have done X, or Dan Quinn made the wrong call here. There are factors, and there are determining factors that affect the outcomes of games, but there are so many layers to this as building a successful season that it's like take a beat for a second. Joe Gibbs was 0-5. I want everybody to remember that. Joe Gibbs was 0-5 and looked like he couldn't coach himself out of a brown paper bag when he came here. And is this the same game? No, but the mentality is similar.
We have people rehashing why Dan Quinn became coach, and we could have had Ben Johnson or Mike McDonald. It's like, you know what? We don't know. None of us know what Dan Quinn's final coaching record is going to look like in Washington, and we sure as hell don't know if it would be any different with those other guys. And I'm with you, man. It's kind of like that movie, The Patriot. We're at the point in the movie where all of the loved ones have gotten locked into the church and burned to death. and all of the soldiers just want to throw their muskets into the woods and just quit. And, I think the line in the movie is stay the course. And I just think that's what we need to do is like, look, it's not all journeys to success are linear like a rocket ship. Sometimes it looks like this, and it sucks.
I'm hearing from fans that are older than me saying that they have less confidence in this team than ever before, and I'm like, what? Really? That's your line in the sand? Would you not remember what we've dealt with for how long? Is it going to be perfect? No, it's not going to be perfect. But guess what? Jaden Daniels' injury was gruesome. It was nasty. But knock on wood, it was a non-throwing arm. X-rays have come back negative. MRI, they're looking for I just saw something that they're looking for a second opinion, which tells me that they believe there's structural damage and they want to get verification of that. He might be done for the year. Guess what? That is okay.
Yeah.
Let's continue to develop, and if we determine that Joe Witt Jr. is not calling a good enough game to win us football games, okay, then so be it. But coming into this game, I didn't expect us to win. We lost Luke McCaffrey on the opening kickoff. We lost Marshawn Lattimore halfway through the game. We got our asses kicked on home turf on Art Monk's induction ceremony with his number retired. Does it suck? Yes. But I can't feel any different about this team now than I did before this game. Nothing happened in this game that was altering enough that I think somebody needs to lose their job over it.
I just got to say one thing, man, because I thought this was the part where I just kind of lost my when we had somebody that was arguing that what we need is the owner to get involved. We need the owner. We need Josh Harris to light a fire and start making some moves. And I'm like, oh my God, I'm pretty sure that Adam Peters knows what the expectations are as
Mm-hmm.
GM of the Washington Commanders. I think he probably knows.
Yeah.
I don't think little Josh Harris is going to get in Adam Peters' face and change the dynamic. So, I mean, just stop with that stuff. Like, good Lord, man. Do you not remember what it was like when we had an owner who thought he knew, what the football team needed? For God's sake, man, get a grip. Have a shot or whatever. Take a walk. Do something. But that is insanity.
I feel like there was a plan from the beginning, and I feel like that plan is still on the board in Ashburn. I don't think the plan has changed. Just because we've got injuries, just because this year hasn't exactly gone to script, I would be willing to bet you that everybody in our leadership group is still all on the same page. Fans don't control this kind of stuff, whether we think we do or not. I mean, we griped and bitched and moaned and protested and did all kinds of stuff for, 20 plus years under the previous owner, and it didn't change anything until the NFL decided that they really wanted him out. He was staying. And I don't think we're going to make any difference to Josh Harris and his team right now either. The fans overwhelmingly want the name back. Harris isn't budging. He doesn't care. He is not concerned about what we think with regard to the name. If he's not concerned about the name, what makes us think he's concerned about what we think about his choice to be GM? Odds are pretty good. He's not losing any sleep over it. And you know what? That's the way I want it. He picked his guy. We're going to stick with our guy. We believe in our guy. He's going to handle this. And to go back to where Derek started this conversation, continuity is a big damn deal. And all football players are not created equal. For years and years and years, we've watched this team go out and get name free agents in the offseason that were all pros and Pro Bowl players other places. And they came to Washington and they could never replicate that success. Why? Different system, different coaches. The player didn't change, except maybe to get richer, right? I'm thinking about Dana Stubblefield here, but Stubblefield proved that he was one of those contract guys. But you look at all the guys that came here and were never the same player here that they were somewhere else. And it's because we run even a slightly different system. And that guy's not getting the same help on the inside or the same help on the outside, or he's asked to play zone instead of man, or he's asked to block instead of do nothing but pass catch. Whatever it is, you pick whatever it is. We've watched it happen for years and years and years. And I just look at this and I'm like, we need what this team right now needs is consistency in terms of vision, where we're going, how we're going to get there, and what we're doing along the way. And I believe right now, Harris, Peters, and Quinn have that in mind and give us the best possibility of achieving something over the next 2, 3, 4 years, 5 years, whatever it ends up being. Maybe Joe Witt isn't along for the ride. I kind of feel like we're going to bring Joe from the press box down to the sideline is that first step towards potentially showing Joe the door, right? And John, I'm with you. He hasn't proven anything in this league. It's not like he's got a long track record. He's not Vic Fangio, right?
No.
So maybe that's where it goes, but maybe it isn't where it goes. Maybe we all get surprised, and moving him to the sideline becomes a motivational thing, and these guys start playing right. I don't know.
I think the hard part, and I imagine, I know what the coaches would say. I know what Dan Quinn would say. He would say, like when they said, what's your plan for the rest of the season? He would say, to win on Sunday. That's the plan. And so I know that's what he would say, but it is hard as a fan when we're done. We're not a playoff team this year. I think that's a foregone conclusion no matter what happens. But I just, as a fan, you're like, well, what am I watching for? What can we do to move the ball forward that, with where we're at right now. And I think that if the coaches were being honest, I think that would also be a challenge for them. Like, so what's the priority? Is it playing all the youngsters, figuring out like which guys can actually play that, can Bennett Sennett catch a damn pass? Can we give him a chance to show whether or not he can catch a pass in a real game? I just don't know where to go. And like, what productive can you do in this situation for the rest of the season so that it's not just a totally lost opportunity?
To be fair, I don't think we matter, and we shouldn't, right? Like, the fan base has an unrealistic expectation that their opinion is a major value point, and it's not. Like, it shouldn't be. John, Bob, I don't know if you guys play high school sports, but any sport of any level, like, the coaches are looking at a player and they're gonna define that player not based on if they're gonna be appealing to the people in the stands. They're gonna define that player based on where can that player become, what can that player become, how can we get them to where they need to be. We mentioned Ben Sinnott. I would love to see more Ben Sinnott. Oh, that's where you brought it back to me. My struggle, my frustration, a little irritation with me right now is I don't understand why Zach Ertz is on the field. And I'm not saying that in a bad way. I'm just being honest. Ertz has had more drops, more mental mistakes, more frustrating plays than almost anybody on the offense. Mm-hmm. So at some point, I need to say, you know what? You're not the guy right now. And even if it's just to show the younger guys that we're not going to put up with this shit, if you have these drops, you have the fumbles, you have the false starts, you have these situations that are affecting our team and their ability to be productive, you're going to not play.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Period. I don't give a damn what your name is, what your tenure is, how many Super Bowl, whatever. So that's like one thing. If I'm going to be a true analysis, is why is Zach Ertz still our primary pass catching receiver? We saw Sinnott had a catch last week, right? Down the sideline, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, against Kansas City.
Bates had a couple decent plays. Both of those guys are capable blockers, which Ertz is not. So I do question that. So I hope that the coaches are looking at that and saying, Sinnott might not be our guy this year. He can't help us win on Sunday, but this guy's got the real ability to do something for the next 10 years of his career. And I hope I need fans, and I don't need, but I wish fans would understand that it's not binary. It's not easy. It's not just as simple as, plus we don't see practice. This guy could be telling Joe Witt to go F his own wife. And you know what I mean? Like, we don't know any of that.
I guess where I was going with that whole thing, Derek, it wasn't so much the fans, which I appreciate what you're saying. It's more, okay, what can this team accomplish at this point? I mean, I'm kind of like, let's just pack it up and go home and come back in 2026, because I just don't know what can you possibly accomplish with all of these people out of the mix. Probably half the guys that are still in the mix won't be in the mix in the future because they're just plug and play guys. I just don't, I don't expect an answer. I just don't know if I'm the coaching staff. Like, you just got to want to throw your hands up and say, what can we even accomplish the rest of this year?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, the schedule's not going to get any easier. Oh, the schedule.
That's for them to figure out, like how do you keep the Indians on the reservation, to use a bad pun?
Yeah. I don't think anybody on this team is going to give up. I just don't. I mean, I may have frustrations with some of the things I see taking place on the field in terms of, some of these older guys and maybe their diminishing skill set, but I don't believe for 1 minute that Bobby Wagner and Zach Ertz are going to throw the towel in. That's not who they are. It's never been who they are, and I don't believe that it's they came back for a reason. They thought they could still play. They thought they could contribute. They thought this team was going to go somewhere. And I don't believe for a hot second that mindset is going to change between now and the last game of the season. So that I'm not worried about. The definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over again and expecting a different result. And I think at this point in time, we're watching the coaching staff, top to bottom, maybe do the same things over and over again and expect a different result. Well, let's try something different. And I don't mean moving a guy from the press box to the sideline. Let's try some different players and and do some different things. We've got Senate out there. Let's try him. Let's throw the ball at John Bates a whole lot more. If we throw it to him 10 times a game, who knows what happens, right? Chris Rodriguez was running the ball harder than anybody else out of the backfield the other night. Let's see more of Chris Rodriguez. Not that I think Bill is a problem. I don't. I think the problem is the fact that they're putting 8 and 9 guys in a box. But Rodriguez is a bigger body. And 8, 9 guys in the box doesn't seem to concern him as much. He's willing to move that pile 2, 3, 4 yards. Reminded me a little bit of Riggins at moments the other night, right?
I hear you on that. I think that was a valid complaint.
Yeah. So, I just want to, I just want to see some things. And one thing we haven't talked about tonight that I kind of want to throw out there, and that is, I think we're seeing a little bit of a regression amongst the players in terms of what they're doing on the field all the way across the board. That isn't tied to the coaching in any way, shape, or form. Maybe it's just me, but it feels like Daniels has been a heartbeat slower with delivering the ball this year than he was last year. Last year, he felt very decisive. It was, I know where I'm going and I'm getting rid of the football, and it was gone. And this year, it feels like he's second guessing his decision. Well,
I just think he doesn't trust what he's seeing, and you can't blame him. I mean, he probably shouldn't trust. It's kind of like somebody said, well, he needs to trust that the wide receivers, no matter who they are, going to be where they're supposed to be. I'm like, except if they're not. If run the route and they're not where they're supposed to be.
Were they where they were supposed to be in practice 2 days ago is my question, right? And if they weren't there,
right. I mean, it's just
leads you to believe they're going to be there tonight, so.
And that's where I was going with when you start taking key pieces out of the equation, it impacts everyone in that group. It doesn't just impact that one position. So anyway, I guess we got to play the Lions. Oh, by the way, the Lions, who we knocked out of the playoffs last year. So I'm sure they're not going to have any kind of a gripe to pick with us. The Lions will take it easy on us and not want to thump us on.
No, they don't. They're not angry.
Not at all. Oh, so how bad is it going to be against Jared Goff and the Lions? Jared Goff's having a hell of a year, by the way.
I think it's going to be. It's bad enough that I'm leaving all the Lions in my fantasy lineup this season or this weekend. That's how bad it is. I'm not pulling Jameson Williams, and I'm not pulling Montgomery out of my fantasy lineup because, well, why would you?
Well, they've got a really good offense, but really passing and rushing. I'm not even going to go through the stats this week. They're super good on offense. Jared Goff, almost 74% completions this season. He's only thrown a pick 3 times. Their defense sacks people at will, and they got a pretty good pair of running back, and they've got good wide receivers. So I think we're really in trouble on Sunday if we weren't. Like, that's some news flash.
The funny thing, you know what? It would be so Redskins to go out there and have our best game of the season this week, right?
It absolutely would. I I'll be really shocked if that happens. I want to remind everybody that the defense the Lions are playing right now is not the defense we faced in Detroit in January.
No, not at
Right.
all.
They had the kind of injury problems last year at the end of the season on their defense alone that we're having across the board this year. And I expect that defense to rise up and play a pretty serious game when they see us on Sunday. I know all those guys were frustrated to not be able to play in January with Jaden and company running all over Detroit. I kind of expect them to want to show the world what maybe they think should have happened in January, and it'd be a very rough day for Marcus. So
they're 5th in the league in turnovers, man. They've got like
nasty.
linebackers with tons of sacks, defensive ends with tons of sacks. I know what you're saying, Derek. I have that thought sometimes, like this will be one of those games where inexplicably we do what
No,
nobody
I'm not
thought.
saying that's what's going to happen. I'm just saying that would be so Redskins.
I mean, we have done that plenty of times in the past, but I just think this is.
I think honestly, I think we are gonna be outmatched. We're gonna be outplayed, and I don't think that that's a problem. And I come back to that and say that like this is not an indictment on what we've talked about for the last 51 minutes. Like we're likely gonna lose this game. We're likely gonna be they are the better team coming into this. They should win it, and there's a lot of factors for that. The injuries being one of the biggest ones, and a couple other factors. So I'm not going to be upset if and when we lose. I'm going to be rooting for my team as loud as all hell, right? And if they find a way to get nasty and get sparky and find a way to get in this game and make things interesting, I'm not going to be upset about it. But it's full on not the expectation at this point.
Yeah. Who is our backup quarterback at this point in time?
Marcus Mariota.
No, he's our starter.
Oh, Josh Johnson.
Yeah, okay. Josh Johnson.
All right. Well, that's concerning. I mean, I'm wondering whether I don't want to say it out loud. I just know, Mariota's was banged up coming into the season. He took a lot of hits the last time he played. So, I think we're going to get demolished. I hate to say it, but I wrote down 35-10, but I think that might be optimistic.
I don't even want to do a prediction score because unfortunately, like I'm with you. I think like I said, we are the lesser team coming into this game. We absolutely are. They are above us. They are better than us right now. If this was a week 1 game, it's a different conversation. But based on what's transpired, I think it's completely fair to expect this team to struggle, them to be better. They're going to be better coached right now because of a lot of the factors we've talked about. There's going to be better execution. We've got a rookie and a second-year player going up against 2 Pro Bowl caliber wide receivers. There's a lot that should lead you believe that rightfully so, we should not win this football game. So
I vote for 4 flea flickers at a minimum. Just go for it. Just to hell with it, man. Let's have 10 or 12 gadget plays.
Well, hold on. Coming back to that, one thing, you know what? I'll criticize the coaching staff. Why have we not seen Luke McCaffrey attempt a pass? Didn't he play quarterback in college?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
How much would that jet pass or end around throwback or throw across the field be in play? I'd be using the hell out of that. Bob, you want to make a prediction?
No. Let me channel my inner Al Davis. There will be pain.
I thought that's Mr. T, right? Isn't that Mr. T in one of the Rocky movies? What's your prediction for the fight?
Pain.
I'm looking at this Detroit defense and I'm looking at our offense at the moment. And I don't see much room for the guys to run. And I don't see Marcus having a whole lot of time to throw the football. We haven't even talked about Tunsil. I don't know if Tunsil's playing this week. But if Tunsil's not playing, I expect Hendricks to have a great week. I don't know.
They just signed him to a fat deal too.
Yeah, I mean, he just got the most guaranteed money of any non-quarterback in league history. Homeboy's going to come to play because he's going to want to show the world why he got the money. And I don't want to sound negative. I don't consider it negative to be realistic. I like Derek. I'm going to tune in on Sunday and I'm going to be cheering for my football team like as hard as I ever do. But I'm not going to be mad at the end of the game if we get blown out, I guess is what I'm saying.
And it shouldn't change your opinion on anything.
No, doesn't change my opinion on Adam Peters. Doesn't change my opinion on Dan Quinn. Doesn't change my opinion about Josh Harris.
Outside of some egregious, like game plan where we're like double teaming, I don't know, their tight end and just letting, like some weird thing that you look at and say, well, that was a terrible decision.
Actually, I might double. I might double Laporta. Homeboy's dangerous.
Well, our message to Washington, the Washington fan base is, we're not to go Bill Clinton on you, but we feel your pain, and we're right there in it with you. But we're just going to have to ride this out, the rest of the season out, and make the best of it, and hope that we can get back on track in 2026. I don't know what else you can say.
But
changes may be needed, but I don't think we can look at the data points now and say that that's necessarily enough to make that call. Because I'll close this out and say, how many kickers have we gotten rid of that are now playing as consistent kickers in the NFL, and we're still looking for them?
Yeah.
Like, you know what I mean? Sometimes it's just out of. Sometimes your stadium was built on an Indian burial ground and you just cursed. I don't know. Apparently. But as always, boys, it's been a pleasure. I love you guys. I would struggle to know what I would do as a fan if I didn't have you guys to get up on every week and we can revisit these things together. And it's borderline therapeutic. We've been going since before COVID. Yeah, I hope you guys realize that. Like, we're hundreds of episodes in. So as always, I appreciate you guys.
This feels a little bit like COVID.
Yeah, jeez.
Kind of fitting.
If you made it this far, hook us up with a like, a share, and a follow. As always, you can find us on all major audio platforms, all major socials, and of course at the mothership, bgobsession.com. And boys, that'll do. That'll do, pigs.